Hey guys, Buff from Game back bringing you our video today, and we're going to be covering the best DMR to use in Call of Duty Modern Warfare Warzone or the Battle Royale mode. Now these are specifically DMRs built from assault rifles, which is the best assault rifle you can convert to a DMR to use in Warzone as a secondary or maybe even a primary. This is not going to take into account actual marksman rifles, specifically the SKS, because I haven't leveled it up all the way yet to use in Warzone as I'd like to. So we'll add that one into the mix later. But I put a poll on the channel the other week, and the choices were between the M4 with the 458 SOCOM or my SR25 build, which you're all familiar with, the FAL marksman build, which we'll go over, as well as the SCAR marksman build for the Mark 20 SSR, as well as the Odin marksman build for the VKS sniper rifle. So we'll go ahead and jump into those, and then we'll go into which ones are the best is why, and I'll be showing some footage in the background to show why I think specifically the one that I'm choosing is the best, and we'll go into that. So let's go ahead and back out. First off, we're going to start from the top. So we'll start with our FAL marksman build. Here I have it listed as a DSA 58. Simply, you can tell right off the bat that I prefer this one for more CQC to mid-range engagements. But if we were to build this for the marksman build, typically what I was utilizing would be the... Now, first off, before I start, a lot of these attachments are going to be the same. So I'll go into these a little bit at the beginning, and then I won't really repeat the pros and cons. So you can just reference back because they're all going to share the same pros and cons of the attachments. So first off, on every loadout, we want the monolithic suppressor. That's going to assist with the sound suppression. You're going to stay off the minimap in Warzone, as well as the damage at range. We want maximum damage at range with these rifle builds. The cons here being the ADS speed, as well as the aim walking steadiness. But that's good. We'll accept that. Now, on every build, you're also going to want the longest barrel attachment that you can have. So with the FAL, you're going to go ahead and want the marksman build, because you can see the pros and cons versus the ultralight, or even the 13-inch OSW, which we obviously don't want for a marksman. So we're going to want the XRK marksman. Again, damage at range, bullet velocity, and recoil control are our pros, with the cons being ADS speed and movement speed. So we'll go ahead and select that. Now for the optic on all of these, we're going to want a variable zoom, because you can toggle between the 3 times and the 6.1 times zoom level on these DMR builds. That's going to help you utilize this at closer range as well as medium to longer range as well. So the pros, obviously the zoom toggle and the magnification level as we discussed. The con, again, ADS speed, which typically we're going to make up for where we can in other attachments. So go ahead and select the variable zoom. Now again, these are all going to be the same attachments mainly throughout all these builds. So stock, for this particular one, this is going to be dependent on what you want. The ForgeTac Pro Stalker is going to really assist with your aiming stability, so you can go ahead and put this on there if you wanted to. We'll go ahead and select that. It's going to, with the aiming stability, keep our reticle from swaying too much when we're trying to aim in on targets. Again, the con here being the aim walking movement speed. Now the final attachment will be the underbarrel, and typically for these I'm going to add in something like the Commando foregrip, because it's going to help with the recoil stabilization as well as the aiming stability. The con here, just the movement speed. You're not taking a hit for the ADS speed with this one. So this is typically the attachments I'm using on all of these builds. So you can see here the final build for the FAL marksman, and overall at base the FAL has a damage per second on average of 432 damage per second. So that's a DPS 432. So this one I think is a very good build. However, the base damage of this weapon is going to be 54 to the chest, 45 to the stomach, 45 to the limbs, and 72 to the head. So it has a good damage profile. Now if you're beyond 45 meters, it starts to go down a little bit to 40 to the chest, 34 to the stomach, 34 to the limbs, and 55 to the head. It's a very good weapon. However, I don't choose this one for the best, because we want to specifically focus on getting shots on target as fast as possible, as accurate as possible, and deal the most damage as possible. So whereas this may trump some of the other ones we're going to look at here with the damage profile with different limbs, the average DPS is not there, and the recoil for this, for me personally, I found it harder to stay on target at the distances that I need to in order to drop people. So again, this is the marksman build. Now as I showed you, I prefer it with the OSW build. I'll link those videos down below. This FAL, very good build, but I prefer it for close quarters engagements instead of a marksman build on this. So this one I'm going to rate lower, definitely not number 1. I would put this maybe number 3 or possibly 4 on the list. Now next up we're going to cover the SCAR marksman build, or the Mark 20 SSR. So again, all the attachments here are going to be the same. We're going to run the monolithic suppressor, the ForgeTac 20-inch barrel on this. Again, a variable zoom, the Obelisk Pro stock on this. Again, this is just going to assist with the aiming stability. Again, another pro for this one versus the fail is going to be the aim walking steadiness. And the con, of course, being the aim walking movement speed. And then the final attachment will be the commando foregrip for the same reason. We don't want to take any more hits to the overall ADS of the weapon, although it is going to hurt our movement speed, but less so than something like a Merc foregrip or even a Ranger foregrip, which will help. It'll actually negate our ADS speed, so we'll be slower overall. So this is the Mark 20 SSR, but I'll link all the weapon conversions where I go way more in depth into each of these weapons down below. But again, this is the Mark 20 SSR. Now, the Mark 20 or the SCAR at base has a damage profile of 35 to the chest, 35 to the stomach, 35 to the limbs, and 56 to the head. Now, beyond 32 meters, it's the same 32 to the chest, all the way through the limbs, and the head goes down to a 51. So the damage per second on average for this is going to be 402, or beyond 32 meters is going to be 367.5 DPS. So it is a good gun. Again, this is not going to be the best because I'm specifically looking at damage per second. We want to deal the most damage as possible in the least amount of time with putting shots on target. So this is going to fall short of our highest damage per second, as well as some of the base damage profiles that we want to look for. So this is a really good weapon. You'll see in the gameplay that I'll show. The only problem here, again, is you're able to hit shots, but your enemy will not drop as fast because you really need to recenter on target and make sure you're hitting your shots. You have a larger magazine here, 20, the same as we did with the base FAL build. But again, to get shots accurately on target as fast as possible to drop our opponent, not the best build. Typically, I'm looking to get shots on target 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, back to back to back, just pull the trigger, tap fire it, and down my enemy from a long distance, which this one definitely will do. However, you need to take a little bit more time to center your shots and make sure you're hitting your opponent. So again, this one I think I'm going to rate, if the FAL I'll put at 3rd, I'm going to put this one actually at 4th place. So this is going to be our last one on the list, although I do like it, again, at closer to medium range, same as the FAL. If you were to build this for a close to medium range assault rifle build like it's meant for in the game, I think this excels at that area. But for a DMR at range, the way we want to utilize it, not the best weapon. So I'll rate the FAL number 4 with the Mark 20 SSR number 3. Now, next up, we're going to cover the VKS, or the Odin marksman build. So here we have, again, the same attachments. We're swapping out of the monolithic suppressor for the colossal suppressor here. You can see you get some added benefits for the colossal suppressor over the monolithic. We get the sound suppression, the damage at range, as well as recoil control, which you really want to use with this weapon due to the fact that it fires a large, almost a 50 caliber round with a 12.7 by 55 Russian round. So essentially the same thing as a mono, just for the VKS, but we have additional pros for that. Now the barrel, again, we're going the longest barrel in game for the 810 millimeter for the Odin. Again, a variable zoom for that 3 to 6.1, and then we're using that ballast pack for the aiming stability pros there. And then again, the commando foregrip for the same reasons as everything else. So this one, I'm actually going to rate number 2 on the list. I really do like this one. And again, the ability with this, you have a 20-round magazine at base, same as what we had with the FAL, as well as the SCAR, the Mark 20 SSR. It does excel very well at long range. So I'll rate this number 2 on the list. Now the damage profile for this at base, when you're within 32 meters, it's going to be 62 to the chest, 48 to the stomach, 48 to the limbs, and 77 to the head, which is actually going to be our highest damage to the head yet. So beyond 32 meters, though, it's going to fall off a little bit, and we're going to go to 46 to the chest, a damage of 36 to the stomach, as well as the limbs, and 58 to the head. Now, the overall damage per second for this weapon is going to be 411. And then beyond 32 meters is going to be 308 DPS. So, again, this fires a large 12.7 by 55 millimeter Russian round, comparable with the 458 SOCOM or even the 50 cal Beowulf rounds for the American versions. It hits really hard. I really do like this one. You also have the ability with that 20-round mag to flip it to semi-auto and just let loose on people at closer range if needed, because we do have that nice variable zoom sight to allow us to toggle from the 3x zoom as well as to the 6.1. So you can, this is a very versatile weapon, and you have a large magazine to really come in clutch in close quarters if you need to, because the rounds hit so heavy. It's going to damage very high damage to the chest and body at close range. And then the DPS is actually going to be, I believe, our second highest on this list, as I said, at 411. So, very good weapon. Again, the only problem with this and the reason it's not number one is because it does have a large magazine with the 20 rounds, same as the other ones, but the recoil and getting shots on target as fast as possible, for some reason the recoil on this, again, is just a little bit too heavy, and I find myself taking my time to center my shots before I fire. It's very rare, especially at longer ranges, where I can simply get on target and tap fire as fast as my finger can go in order to down an enemy. So I'm finding myself taking more time to center my shots, and then even sometimes having to just go full auto and rip this thing. Even though it does have a slow rate of fire, I'm able to be sometimes even more effective at a medium range for that. And then again, at long range, is just taking too much time to recenter my shots in order to down an enemy, especially if they're on the move. I find it difficult. But this is number two. I do actually have a lot of fun using this, but for the best DMR, it's gonna fall a little bit short at number 2 on the list. Now again, this is Warzone specific. This kind of weapon excels in multiplayer as well as in hardcore. It's just a machine. So again, I'll link the conversion down below for that. Now the number 1 spot here is gonna go to the SR25 or the M4A1 with the 458 SOCOM rounds. So I'll link the video. I covered this already for Warzone, and I dubbed it the Squad Killer, and it holds true to that as I did in the video earlier this month. So again, the attachments are going to be the exact same as these other builds. We're going to go with the monolithic suppressor, the Corvus Custom Marksman over the M16 Grenadier, although you do get very similar pros and cons with this. You can see if we went with the Grenadier, we get a little bit more accuracy as well as range on the weapon, and mobility would be down a little bit with control being up as well. But this just looks ridiculous in my opinion because it's a Grenadier shield on the weapon that's meant to be used with an M203. So I personally just don't even want to bother with this stock or this barrel option. But you can go ahead. You're definitely going to get better overall performance out of the weapon. Just your mobility is going to go down. But I am someone that prefers the mobility, so we're going to go with the Corvus Custom Marksman. Now this is the 19-inch versus the 20-inch barrel on this weapon. You get the same pros and cons, and your mobility is down slightly, but you can see it's actually fairly comparable to Grenadier. You get a little bit pros and cons there, but you get the same damage at range, bullet velocity, recoil control, the con being ADS speed and movement speed. So we're not going to take as big of a hit to the movement speed or the ADS speed since we have an inch shorter barrel with that 19-inch. Then we go with the variable zoom. Now I'm actually not utilizing the M16 stock, which would be the aim and stability stock that we would use on every other attachment, because we actually need to convert our rounds. Because this is an M4, we need to do those 4.58 SOCOM rounds on this weapon. So this is the only marksman rifle that we're not using the base ammunition on the weapon. So with the 4.58 SOCOM, we're getting the pros for damage as well as range on the weapon, which is going to coincide very nicely with the barrel attachment that we have on the gun, as well as the monolithic suppressor. The cons being the fire rate is going to be reduced. The recoil control, we're going to have more recoil because we have a larger round versus the 5.56. And the magazine ammo capacity, we're going from a 30-round 5.56 Denag to a 10-round PMag, or a straight mag. I believe it's a Magpul magazine, but again, don't quote me on that. But you're going from essentially going from 30 rounds in an AR style round to a 10 round in a 4.58 SOCOM. So that's the attachment that we want for the ammunition. Now the underbarrel, again, the same thing. We're going with the Commando foregrip just because it's going to sit the recoil stabilization as well as the aiming stability, help us keep our shots on target when we're aiming. The con and movement speed, but again, we don't want to take that hit to the ADS speed with something like a Ranger foregrip. Now I've tried all these attachments on this weapon. I still prefer the Commando foregrip on this. And that's our final design for the SR25. And now the damage profile for this, the M4 with the SOCOM rounds at base, within 35 meters, is going to be 48 damage across the board to the chest, stomach, and limbs. The damage to the head is going to be 72. So again, this is actually, I believe, our highest so far, tied with the FAL. So it's 72 damage to the head. The damage per second on this, on average, is going to be 594. So by far the highest, and you're able to get shots off very fast with this weapon. Even though you have a reduced ammo capacity, the damage is just much better and consistently accurate for this weapon. So now beyond 35 meters, the damage profile drops down to 41 for the chest, stomach, and limbs, and goes from 72 to 61 to the head. Now the damage per second on average beyond 35 meters goes from 594 to 506, which still is hands down #1 on the chart for DPS. So the SR-25 is definitely, in my choice, #1 for the best DMR conversion to use in Warzone from an assault rifle. The main things here is you're converting the ammunition from a 5.56 to a 4.58 SOCOM to really increase your damage as well as range. And the different attachments that I showed here are going to allow you to keep your shots on target, and you can pull that trigger as fast as you can and know that your recoil is not going to be that high with these attachments, and you're going to down your opponent very quickly. Especially in trios or even quads, I've taken out whole squads just with one magazine. So if you can, now obviously that's dependent on the armor. This is going to break the armor within 2 to 3 shots, and then you're going to down your opponent within 4 maximum. So the good thing about this, again, even though you have the 10-round magazine, you can pull that trigger as fast as you want. The reload speed is not that long, and your opponents are going to drop, and you know that your shots are going to go right where you want them to go. It's a very accurate weapon, especially at sniper rifle ranges. You may need to lead your target a little bit more or compensate for bullet drop at extreme ranges, but I'm still able to down people at very far sniper rifle ranges with this weapon. And the annoying thing is that, especially if an enemy's on the move or trying to get on cover and get shots on you, you can keep hammering shots right at them very accurately, causing them to having to keep replace armor, be on the move, and really pin them down. Anywhere they're going, if they're trying to move, you're going to hit your shots on them, and they're not going to try and shoot back at you. In most cases, you're going to down them and kill them immediately. So this is by far #1 on the chart, the SR-25 or the M4 converted to the 458 SOCOM rounds. Now, as I tried out the other weapons here, mainly the FAL marksman, and the Mark 20 SSR for the SCAR, I found myself really struggling to fill the role that I had already been accustomed to with this SR-25 or the 458 SOCOM M4 build. So basically what I mean is, in solos, in squad matches, being able to use those different DMRs for the Mark 20 or the SCAR to the FAL, I wasn't able to perform in-game as best as I could with the SR-25, meaning enemies would take longer to go down and take me longer to get shots on target, and it just overall wasn't the weapon that I had been used to here with this 458 SOCOM or the SR-25 build for the M4. Now, the VKS or the Odin was a nice in-between between the FAL and the SCAR versus the SR-25 here, the M4. So I think it filled a nice gap in between there, but again, the SR-25 performs excellent, even at close range to very long range. Your mobility is hands down the best. Those other weapons, the FAL, SCAR, and the Odin, are going to move. You're going to move very slow with them. The weapon reload is very slow. The ADS speed is very slow. Versus this, with the M4, you're performing essentially the same as having an M4, just you have a marksman build of the weapon. Your mobility is all going to be the same as an M4. So you really have the best DMR hands down here in the game. So you can see with the different clips I'm showing in the background here, this weapon just drops people. I'm able to get up on towers near TV and down entire multiple squads of this weapon. And even using it in solos versus the other weapons. As soon as I went back to this, I finished my testing with the VKS, the Mark 20, as well as the FAL. I finished all my testing with those, and then I went right back to this for the very first game, using it in probably since the beginning of the month, and I won a solo easily just because I'm able to utilize my assault rifle for up close, and then this at even closer to medium to long ranges, especially the end circle. I downed multiple people in the end circle with this weapon, and you can down them very fast. So this is hands down #1 on the DMR chart for me. Now, again, I haven't looked at the marksman rifle build for the SKS in Warzone yet, but that does fire a 7.62 round. But how that's going to compare to something like the Mark 20 or the SCAR or even the FAL, I haven't looked at the damage profiles for the SKS compared to those yet. But I still have a feeling, based on playing around with it in multiplayer or even private matches, that the SR-25 here is still going to be the go-to rifle in game for the DMR role. But go ahead and let me know down below what you guys think. What marksman rifle builds do you prefer in game to fill that DMR role? Are you utilizing anything I missed here? Any weapons that you think are better at long range that I didn't cover in this video? I tried to do all the weapon conversions that I've done in the past that can be utilized for long range engagements that have a heavier caliber weapon. So with the FAL and the SCAR both firing a 7.62 round, as well as the Odin firing that 12.7 by 55, which is essentially, again, a 50 caliber round. And then we have the M4, which fires that 458 SOCOM with this conversion on this weapon. So let me know down below what you guys think. Do you agree with my opinion, or do you think there's another one that should have been number 1 on the list? So just to recap, the SR25 here is going to be number 1. The Odin or the VKS is going to be number 2. The FAL is going to be number 3, and the SCAR is going to be number 4 on the list. So let me know down below what you think. If you agree, disagree, give me some ideas, give me some feedback. I really want to know what you guys are using in Warzone so I can try out some different ones. But again, this SR25 just comes in clutch every time. And I find myself, whether it's shooting at solos or squads, they just don't know what to do with this thing, peppering them with shots. Very accurate at any range, and you get shots on target really quick. So let me know what you guys think down below, and until next time, Buffering.